Well, good morning. This is coming at you from the barn. Just sitting here. It's kind of a cold and a wet day. It's early May here in Ontario, and I had the horses in for the breakfast. They're still in there, just finishing up, and I was had a few thoughts I wanted to kind of share. Sort of the thought of this video was the unrealistic view that so many people seem to have who are not actively involved with horses. The unrealistic view they have of horses in general and working with horses, and whether it be saddle horses or driving horses, work horses. The problem I see, for the most part, it has become almost a fantasy world. Uh, I'd say by and large, the majority of the population, 99% of the population alive today, has no direct experience of living with horses. If you go and look at historical footage of cities 25 years ago, you look at the footage and the world is filled with horses. The cities are full of horses. The roads are clogged with horses. Everybody, everybody, rural or urban, suburban, was intimately associated, whether directly or indirectly. They were intimately acquainted with the nature of living with horses because they did. And so the last century, that's been a gradual disassociation of men and women from the horses. And so what I have on my mind today is this unrealistic view that some people have on both sides of the coin. You have some who would consider it, a horror show on the one hand. You have activists and various people who think that living with horses and working with horses it was just a horror show. And then you have people on the other end of the spectrum, and perhaps they have a fairy tale uh, vision, this fairy tale idea that it's just all lollipops and rainbows and rose gardens. And the truth is in the middle. As with most things in life, the truth is in the middle. So what I see today is this unrealistic view of working with horses. And I speak as someone who spends, you know, basically my entire working life working and living and, you know, working with horses. They're my coworkers and my work mates throughout most days. So I have a pretty realistic view of what it's like to live and work, with horses on a full-time basis. And I see a lot of people come to me, or who I have knowledge of. I may not be directly connected, but I'm indirectly connected, and they they have this idea, this fairy tale idea, that they're gonna get a horse or horses, and they're gonna be um, driving off into the sunset, and things are gonna be wonderful. and and then they come for a lesson or two, and then they find out, like, whoa, this is like work. This is like, it's slow, and everything takes a long time, and the horses have problems. It's like anything in this life. There's no clear sailing, surefire, foolproof, guaranteed anything. You go to start your car to go to work in the morning and you got a flat tire or you got a dead battery or you just have to scrape the frost off the windshield, or some, and then you got to stop and you got to get gas, and then the price of gas has gone up, and and then it needs an oil change, and then there's a flashing light on the dashboard, the check engine light, and then you got to take it to the garage, and so it's, horses, they need to be shod, they need to be cared for, they need to get, vaccinations, and they need all this stuff. It's everything in life is somewhere between horror show and fairy tale, and it's in the middle that we live, and you know, and so I just wanted to say that I see this unrealistic, whether it be overly negative or overly positive view, and there's a lack of reality because people are not connected. They don't have the direct personal connection with what it is to live in a horse powered world. And until you actually put your boots on and walk around surrounded by horses and do it and live it and be it, you really don't have a way to verify the accuracy of anything. And so when I see historical footage, let's say somebody's restored some video footage from 125 years ago of a city scene, and you can see all the traffic and the people going about their lives. And it's remarkable that this has been preserved. But then I notice all kinds of things. I like to watch the horses and the vehicles, like the wagons, the carriages, and it's amazing the variety of horse-drawn vehicles that there were back in the day. Specific vehicles for specific purposes, and you notice the things going on. You see a horse go by, and you can see where somebody's jury-rigged harness, or and to an unexperienced onlooker, they wouldn't have any idea. Or you watch the driver, and he's driving the horses. You can see what the horse is doing. The driver's trying to correct the horse. The horse is doing something it shouldn't be doing, and you can see the driver fiddling with the lines, or horse behavior has hardly changed in millennia. And so looking at it, you can see that it's the same. I could go back in time 125 years, sit beside those guys, and have a good conversation, and we'd be on the same page. Because horses haven't changed any. So I hope that, more and more people are able to look past the fairy tales and the horror shows and get to reality and see things as they are. And particularly if there's a person out there who's maybe pondering horse ownership and thinking about their life with their horse, or they want to get work horses, a team of horses, and try not to look at it in terms of fairy tales, and be realistic about the amount of work it's going to take and the amount of effort it's going to be involved, and the probability of failure as opposed to success in most things you're going to attempt. Not to be discouraging, but just to be realistic. And for those who might see life with horses as a horror show, and the working horse was a slave, and anybody who owns an animal or uses it for anything other than yard ornament purposes is somehow Satan incarnate, and a slave driver, and the worst of the worst. Think about that, what you're saying, and take an honest appraisal of the world and where we would be in, particularly in Western society, Western civilization, Europe, North America, South America. Take take a moment and ponder what would life be like were it not for the men and the horses, the oxen, who built this country. Think of it what you will, but to to be ahistorical, to claim that those skills that our ancestors had were evil and were unnecessary and are to be discarded. When you reject your history and when you reject um, crafts and skills that are now obsolete, when you allow those to die and be forgotten, you are cutting yourself off from a lot. And I think there is a great misunderstanding and a great lack of appreciation for the history of horsepower, for the skills associated with it. And they are increasingly in danger of becoming lost as each new generation comes and goes, and there are still people who are directly connected with that on a more or less daily basis. But more and more, we have a civilization that is becoming disconnected from that. They are utterly, completely reliant, dependent, subservient to a technocratic, push button, miraculous, they don't even know how it works, it just works, and they exist in this technical bubble of digital neuropathy. It's just this, it's this artificial world, and I hope for their sake it continues, and there's never a calamity. Some people are, they live their lives so devoid of uh, real tactile, concrete skill and experience. If the power goes out, they have no idea. If the internet goes down, their life is a catastrophe. If there's cell phone outage, it's a disaster. They can't function. They are becoming so helpless. It's pathetic. It's pathetic, and yet they are, generally speaking, they're the ones who see the past as a horror show, where people could live without electricity, without cars, without cell phones, without the internet. They got up in the morning, they fed their horse, they brushed it off, they threw the harness on it, and they went to work. They built the world that we live in today. They laid the foundations for all the people in the apartment towers take for granted. So, leave it there for now. I gotta get on with my day. Try to take a realistic view of things when it comes to horses. It's not a horror show, and it's not a fairy tale. It's life. Take care.